employee engagement has been noted as an important aspect of a company by so many executives. Yet, we see that there are so many companies lacking in this department. We need managers and leaders to take charge and focus on employee engagement. This means that you are attracting the correct talent and keeping those people for the long term. And that is what we ideally want for any company. Welcome to the final lesson of Module 2. I want to start Lesson 8 with the following quote. To win in the marketplace, you must first win in the workplace. And that is going to be our theme for this entire lesson. Today we are going to focus on employee engagement. Our objectives include understanding employee engagement, engagement tools, and leadership and engagement. Our first question of the day. What percentage of employees said that they would work harder if they were better appreciated? We see 40%, 69%, and 97%. As you know, this answer will come up later in this lesson. Let's kick off with our first section of employee engagement. Employee satisfaction only indicates how happy or content your employees are. It does not address their level of motivation, involvement, or emotional commitment. For some employees, being satisfied means collecting a paycheck while doing as little work as possible. When organizations focus on how to improve employee satisfaction, changes won't necessarily lead to increased performance. Oftentimes, the conditions that make employees satisfied with their jobs are the same conditions that frustrate high-performing employees. Top performers embrace change, search out ways to improve, and challenge the status quo. They expect all employees to be held accountable for delivering results, whereas low performers avoid accountability, cling to the status quo, and resist change. Employee satisfaction and engagement is not the same thing. Yes, we want our employees to be satisfied and happy at work, but engagement is a more holistic way of looking at the overall work environment of the employee. Are they engaged? Do they feel like they're working hard? Do they understand the vision? Are they satisfied? So satisfaction forms part of our engagement. So let's look at the importance of what is an employee engagement. According to Custom Insight, employee engagement goes beyond activities, games, and events. Employee engagement drives performance. Engaged employees look at the whole of the company and understand their purpose and where and how they fit in. This leads to better decision making. Organizations with an engaged workforce outperforms their competition. They have a higher earning per share, and they recover quickly after a recession and financial setbacks. Engagement is a key differentiator when it comes to growth and innovation. So with that, engagement impacts every aspect of your company as it impacts productivity. It looks at how your employees work with customers, how profitable your company is, and how long you're able to retain your employees. All of these things add to the success of your company, and therefore it is so important for companies and managers to fully understand what engagement means, how to measure it, and how to influence it in order to improve the employee engagement. So let's look at how to measure employee engagement in the workplace. Employee engagement surveys have been developed specifically to measure the performance, strategic alignment, competency, and satisfaction of contributors. Engagement surveys must be statistically valid and benchmarked against other organizations if they are going to provide useful results. Without these things, it is difficult to know what you are measuring and whether the results are good or bad. Engagement can be accurately measured with a short survey that contains a few questions, but such surveys must only provide an indication of whether the employees are engaged. They have a hard time explaining why employees are engaged or disengaged because of the lack of detail. Without sufficient information, an organization cannot develop meaningful activities, training programs, strategies, and initiatives to raise the levels of engagement. In order to complete the picture of employee engagement, a survey needs to include about 50 to 80 questions that covers a complete range of relevant topics. They should also be open-ended questions to further diagnose potential engagement problems with the company. Coming up, I want to share some statistics with you guys to fully understand how employee engagement comes into play. 71% of executives said that employee engagement is critical to the company's success. Employee engagement reduces absenteeism. In fact, a Gallup study shows that highly engaged workplaces saw 41% lower absenteeisms. Finally, overall companies with high employee engagement are 21% more profitable. So engagement is important. That is why more companies need to measure their engagement and find out what is working and what is not. A few companies that are brilliant at this are the following. First off, we're going to look at L'Oreal. One of the best opportunities you have to engage with your employees is when they start. This is the approach that L'Oreal is known for. As part of their wider strategic onboarding program for all newcomers worldwide, L'Oreal developed the world's first employee onboarding app with the sole purpose of assisting newcomers to understand and decode and master the company culture. Called Fit, the app reaches up to 10,000 new hires per year and is available in 11 languages. It helps new recruits really understand the culture and the complete real-life mission of the company in order to make sure that they are putting it into practice. And this is such a great way to fully engage your employees, set up your company culture, and make sure that everyone has the same language and understanding. Richard Branson is arguably one of the greatest leaders of our generation. It's not necessarily because of his wild PR adventures, but it's because he built a company that champions the employees. Branson understood that building a successful business meant building an environment when people would enjoy working, and that means that he built a culture of engagement where people wanted to be at work and that employees were giving much more because they wanted to be there. Branson once said, "Some 80% of your life is spent working. You want to have fun at home, so why shouldn't it be fun at work?" And that is the philosophy that you can see when you look at the engagement of the employees. What TripAdvisor did for travel, Glassdoor did for employee engagement. By building a platform where employees can anonymously rate and review companies and their management, Glassdoor has made employee engagement an imperative focus area that all companies must address. As the boundaries between our personal and professional lives have become increasingly blurred, alongside the rise of millennials in the workplace, so too many important tendencies and transparencies are needed. So too has the importance of transparency and a truly meaningful company culture. It makes employee engagement absolutely vital. So as you can see, if we look back at lesson 7, culture and engagement goes hand in hand. When you have a culture in line with your strategic goals, it makes it so much easier to get engaged employees. I want to share with you guys a quick sneak peek before we go on to the next section of this lesson. In Module 3, Lesson 1, we're going to look at diversity management and the impact it has on your organization. These are hard topics that we need to address as managers and leaders. This will mean that the future of your company is sustainable and that you have the tools needed for the business world that is ever changing. But for now, let's look at employee engagement tools that you can effectively use within your company. First off, what are some of the reasons why employees do not feel engaged? Well, we can see inadequate education. This can mean that the employees do not feel qualified, trained, or skilled enough for a role. And as a result, they become extremely frustrated because they are scared that if there is a change or when the manager looks at them, they will not be good enough and they're going to lose their jobs. So we see that people will disengage or hide themselves because of this inadequacy. Employees also feel the lack of engagement when change is not effective. They see that employees disengage when they struggle to understand the company and the direction that the company is heading in. This is the same for any kind of change. Employees lack engagement when they do not feel part of the change and when employees do not see the value of it. The same, I think, is when a company changes consistently. People will have low engagement because they are not ready to invest. Because as soon as they get used to something, it's just going to change again. So we see employees disengaging because of this. Employees can see a lack of engagement when they do not feel motivated to work. This can come down to the lack of rewards, recognition, and the lack of motivation from the company leaders and managers. When employees see that the manager or leader is not motivated, why would they be? We should keep this in mind, that money is not enough. When you throw money at people, but you don't motivate them, you don't engage them, you don't make sure that they can have an active voice, people will lose motivation even if you're paying them top dollar. With that, let's look at our last reason. Here we see poor relationship management. And when company leaders do not have effective relationships, people will disengage. I've seen a few times that top leaders don't even know what the current engagement rate is. Then when they try to engage with the employees, it fails. Employees are easy to say, well, it's too late, it doesn't matter, and then you have this stagnant amount of employees who are not ready to go anywhere, and your entire company culture will become toxic. So get ahead of it. Make sure that you understand your employees, you have the one-on-one relationship with them, and you are surveying your employees to fully understand how things are going. But if you've lacked this engagement for a very long time, it will take time. Employees won't open up directly because they felt let down in the past. So make sure that you are investing enough time and allowing for them to embrace the process. So let's look at some types of engagement. So like we said, we have engaged employees. These are people who are passionate, they have a profound connection with your company. They drive innovation and move the company forward. These are the types of employees that every company wishes they have, and they want to keep these employees. But it's not always realistic. You would most likely have a mix of different types of employees in every team and company. Not engaged employees are essentially the checked out type. They are sleepwalking through the workday, putting as little time and energy into their work. The issue is that when leaders and managers fail to see these employees and you leave them, they will become the employees' permanent work behavior. This lowers your company's productivity and overall engagement rate. Try to spot these employees when you can, ideally at the beginning stage. Actively disengaged employees aren't just unhappy at work, they're busy acting out their unhappiness. Every day, these workers undermine what their engaged co-workers have accomplished. This is your most dangerous engagement type. These employees will not only lower productivity, but they can push for a toxic work environment. They can result in your engaged employees losing motivation and your disengaged employees becoming negative and moving to the actively disengaged type. Make sure that you are identifying the different types of engagement. You want to avoid your employees losing engagement and also becoming negative. So what are some tools or approaches that you can take to improve engagement in the workplace? A way to get to know your employees and how they are feeling is by using surveys. You are able to let them complete the survey and be honest about how things are going. This way you can gauge what is good and bad about the company. It's a great way to have employees share ideas and things that they want to work on. According to Gallup, any survey data must be specific, relevant, and actionable for any team at any organizational level. Data should also be proven to influence key performance metrics. Gallup continues by adding that real changes occurs at a local work group level, but it happens only when companies' leaders set the tone from the top. Companies realize the most benefits from engagement initiatives when leaders weave employee engagement into performance expectations for managers and enable them to execute on those expectations. Managers and employees must feel empowered to make a significant difference in their immediate environment. Leaders and managers should work with employees to identify barriers to engagement and opportunities to effect change. Employees are familiar with the company's processes, systems, products, and customers. They are also experts on themselves and their teams. So it makes sense to maximize your employees by making sure that they are able to be honest and transparent. I think we can all agree that leadership and management make such a difference when it comes to company culture, engagement, and the general well-being of your company. When companies have great leadership in place, the overall company benefits. More companies need leaders to understand employees and the company needs. And this means that leaders are able to bridge the gap between employees and the company. As leaders and managers have such an impact on engagement, you want to make sure that you are spending enough time when you are selecting leadership for your team. And you as leader or manager, you need to spend the correct time to fully understand your employees in order to improve engagement. This point of view is for executives and top leaders and managers. If you're in a position where you can influence the company leadership, take note here. You need to train managers and leaders to do better and be better. You have to give leaders the tools they need to help employees and manage engagement. Without coaching tools, even if managers and leaders want to improve engagement, they will not be able to. When you are able to give the managers and leaders the tools they need, accountability is the next stage. Managers and leaders should be held accountable for their team engagement. As the leader and manager directly influences this part of the employee experience, you want to measure how successful the manager or leader is at this function. Define the goals you want to achieve when it comes to engagement. When you're able to set up the measurements, you will see how realistic the goal is and how effective the managers and leaders are at implementing it. And these are the specific things we want to measure all inputs when it comes to engagement, and then as a result, we can measure the outputs of the employee engagement. Next up, I want to look at employee engagement tools that you can make use of in your business right now. According to Office Vibe, short frequent surveys are a great way to maintain a consistent pulse on the vibe of your office. There's no need to make this process complex. You want to find a regular way to ask anywhere from 5 to 10 questions about how people are feeling at work and if everything is going well. You can also relate it to change and culture to make sure that employees have a voice. This is a great way to truly get to know your employees and their engagement. You can have a weekly or monthly one-on-one session to see what is happening. Having regularly scheduled or hour-long meetings where you can have an informal chat with each other is a great way to get a real sense of what is going on. The advantage of this method is you can collect feedback in a private way that is safe, and employees can feel safe and share more details because they trust you as a manager or leader. The key for managers is to remove the fear for employees so that they can feel safe and open up. Exit interviews are fairly common in most organizations, but one great idea is that they should be done more often and should be in an interview form. Exit interviews can be great, but they can also be too late. So employees could have felt frustrated and there was no intervention. As a result, they left the company. The goal with an exit interview is to find out what you could have done better to improve engagement. And the goal of a stay interview is to find out what you're doing well and how it could be improved upon. Finally, using the Employee Net Promoter Score, or ENPS, is one of the most effective and simple ways to measure engagement. It's one simple question that truly engages employees. It's one thing to be happy at work, but would you be willing to recommend the organization as a good place to work? Would you be willing to recommend the product or service that they sell? So these are some of the questions that you can think of, that you can have a high impact question that will truly tell you what the employees feel about the company. You can use a scale system from 0 to 10 to help guide the employees when giving their answer. This brings us to the final section of this lesson, leadership and engagement. Did you know? The number of employees who are disengaged at work has averaged at 70% for nearly 2 decades. An employee who feels engaged and inspired are 125% more productive than the satisfied staffer. Survey your workforce a minimum of 4 times a year, along with other mission-critical KPIs and business metrics. Leading with that, I have a quote for this section. Your number one customer are your people. Look after employees first and then customers last. As you can see, this is quite a trend when you think of top leaders. People like Richard Branson and other top leaders are saying the same thing. Look at your employees first, take care of them, and this leads to better customer service. So how can leaders engage employees? As we've said, you can use your one-on-one time with your employees to really get to know your team members. While I was working in Vietnam, I used to have regular one-on-one meetings with all of my head of departments. During this time, I would check in to see how they were doing, how their team members were doing, and what goals they had per week. I would also use the opportunity to coach them, and we would talk about the different experience and tough situations that they were facing and things coming up. Out of this session, the employees could unload with their issues, and this enabled me to understand their needs as managers and leaders. I could also understand the current team dynamic that they were facing themselves. As a result of knowing your employees, you're able to better coach them. This means employees get access to better coping tools and growth. Employees can then apply these models or advice to see the difference that it will make in their work-life experience. Employees feel more engaged when they know what is happening. Keep everyone in the loop when it comes to company changes and the general state of the company and management decisions. Employees are more likely to be transparent themselves when the management creates this culture and environment. The most engaged employees feel like they can grow. This means that we are challenging our employees to grow and allowing them to apply it. Give your employees the responsibility and new tasks that will give them skills and the growth opportunities that they're looking for. Continuing on, when you challenge employees to grow, you need to be ready to support them and help guide them. Employees feel engaged with this growth mindset and the environment that it creates because they trust you more as their manager and leader. If your employees need help and they're reaching out to you, but you're nowhere to be found, this creates a sense of apathy with employees. In time, employees will not trust that you're able to help them or that you will be available if the cycle continues. Make sure that you are ready to offer support and that they can reach you. You guys have heard this a few times by now, but even when it comes to engagement, recognition is an amazing tool. People want to be seen. People want to feel like they are doing a good job. People also want to know that the time that they are giving is being seen. As managers and leaders, you have the power to do this. Recognize the effort of each employee. Recognize that employees are overcoming something personally or professionally every time they step in that door. Take the time to say thank you and make sure that you are noticing the actions of your employees. It does not always have to come down to a dollar amount. It can be as easy as saying, I see you. I see the work that you're putting in. I see what you're overcoming and you're doing an amazing job. And we need more of that. This is another part of company culture that impacts engagement. If your company culture does not recognize or reward teamwork, employees are less likely to do it. When you want employees to be in a team, work and collaborate, you have to have a system for that. You need to have a culture for that. So make sure that you know the goals, the strategies that you want. And if teamwork is part of that, make sure you're creating an environment where people want to work in teams. And if they do so and they are outperforming others, there is a reward system in place. Finally, let's answer that question I asked you guys right at the beginning of this lesson. What percentage of employees said that they would work harder if they were better appreciated? 40%, 69%, and 97%? The answer is 69% of employees. And that is a high number. Just by saying thank you, just by saying that you are seen, people are willing to work harder. Appreciation is as easy as a thank you and public recognition. I think we can do more as leaders and managers just to say thank you to employees for all of the little things that they do. These things add up and you will have a better team as a result of it. With that, it brings me to the end of this lesson. Make sure to go check out all the previous lessons that we've already covered. Make sure to read up on the different topics if you still feel unsure. And you can always reach out to me at support@showacademy.com if you have any questions or if you need additional support. I want to remind you guys to go check out your toolkit items for your summary notes. You can also look at your web slides to review some of the lessons. Finally, this lesson challenge is very straightforward and it won't take much time. Start to think of your employee engagement. As easy as that. I recommend looking at the 3 different engagement types and looking at your team members. I would also suggest looking at yourself. Are you engaged right now? Are you disengaged? Are you actively disengaged? Where are you at in your business life and where do you need to be? This will give you a good starting point to help you guide your team and determine the work that needs to be done. I want to congratulate you all on completing lesson 8 of module 2. You have just completed this entire module. Then coming up in module 3, lesson 1, we're going to look at diversity management. So not a module that you want to miss. Jack Walsh said, "Before you become a leader, success is all about growing yourself. And after you become a leader, success is about growing others." And I love that statement so much. And I will speak to you all in module 3. Have a wonderful day.